Welcome back to your favorite series on YouTube, featuring Elden Ring characters and A Song of Ice and Fire characters. Today's character study, we're going to be focusing on a couple of well-known heroes, Godwyn the Golden and Jon Snow. Now, before we get started, quick touch upon the ground rules. If you want a more in-depth overview of the ground rules, go and check out the Bran and Mikula video. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy the show. All right, Malcolm, let's talk about Godwyn, okay? Who is he? Who is Godwyn the Golden?
Godwyn the Golden is a part of the Golden lineage. He's the son of Marika the Eternal and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Marika the Eternal is the fucking kings of the lands between, basically. The ruler over it all. She houses the Elden Ring in her womb and basically makes all the rules for the world.
You see, that's very interesting. This Godwyn, is he the only son of Marika and Godfrey the Eternal?
No, he's not the only son. He's one of many children that Marika had with multiple different people, but it actually gets into the Golden lineage. The Golden lineage is really just the whole family tree sprouting from Marika. Marika's the Empyrean and Godfrey's just a dope-ass dude. Yeah, she took over the previous rulers of the lands between, the Glomide Queen, fucked them up, killed all the demigods using Malekith, and Godfrey, who's just Khal Drogo, throw that up there, and basically established a new order.
So this Marika figure, this Marika the Eternal figure, what did she do when she took over the lands between from the Glomide Queen?
That's actually very clever because it rhymes. So what she did was, she did two things. Well, what she did is in her name, Marika the Eternal. She took the Elden Ring, which is a physical manifestation of all the laws, physical laws and whatnot going on inside the planet. Magical realism, folks, refer to Rule 4. And she actually took out the rune of death because she hated death, and Glomide Queen lived in a world with death and whatnot. So she took out the concept of death from the world so people couldn't die. So she and her golden family with their golden hair, their mighty golden hair, could reign forever.
Wow, that's serious stuff. So you're telling me that Marika the Eternal and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, came into power and conquered the Glomide Queen's dominion, and now make all the rules for everybody else, and then they had a little baby boy, Godwyn the Golden?
They did.
Well, what about Godwyn? What does he do?
Well, that's the thing about Godwyn. He was quite the goated individual. He was literally called the golden child of the golden lineage. Now that's pretty gold, folks. Can you believe that's the only thing that's actually written down about that? He was just considered perfect in every way.
I had a baby brother. I had a little baby brother. And he was perfect.
And one of the big things he did was he brokered peace between the ancient race of dragons that ruled and were on the planet before the Golden Order. They would come attack everyone in the Order now. And instead of destroying them, Godwyn said, let's make friends with these people. They are here before us. They have just a right to live here as we do. And ended up taking the mighty dragon Fortisax as a friend. And it created a huge ripples in the lands between, where it not only became normal to be friends with dragons, but then they started teaching dragon magic inside of the capital. Lanisax, the sister of Fortisax, the dragon, would take a human form, enter the capital, and teach her dragon magic. And it started like a cult thing, cult of the dragon shit.
This sounds like a great individual.
Great.
Probably went on to do a lot of great things. Well.
Well, about that, he actually died.
He died?
He did die.
What? He died? He died?
He did die. He died. That's the thing. America the Eternal ruled in a land without death, and he ended up being the first demigod to die. How ironic is this? So, how he died was the brother and sister from a rival family, the Carrion royal family, which cared a lot more about intelligence-based magic versus the faith-based magic of the Golden Order. Golden Order being the religion of the Golden Lineage and thus the lands between. Ronnie and Rykard were the son and daughter of a powerful witch that lived in an academy built atop of a bunch of space rocks that boosted magic. Old Town. Old Town. And they hated the Golden Order, and they hated its ideas of determinism and its idea of fate and whatnot. And Ronnie especially hated it, Ronnie the Snow Witch, because she was determined by the two fingers, envoys of the Greater Will.
And what is the Greater Will?
The Greater Will is the residing god of the Golden Order, thank you, that everyone worshipped. So to free herself from this idea of becoming an Empyrean, the next America, she said, I must rid myself of my corporeal flesh, which required a fucking blood magic ritual, very much like the ones we've seen before in George Fartins. Had to throw that in there. Little things, his work before. So what happened was, for America to rid the world of death, she had to take the rune of death out of the Elden Ring, all the runes comprising the way life works on the planet. And she hid it in the blade of her most loyal companion, Malekith, who's just a big lion thing. Wolf. He's a wolf. Shh, not Aslan, folks. I don't know if he's like a Ser Jorah or what. So he's the only one that could administer death, and he just had to tuck it away because no one was going to die, because that's how life works. Life is perfect if no one can die. So Ronnie stole this rune of death, imbued it into a bunch of knives that she gave to the Black Knight assassins, which are Newman women. Yeah, we know who the Newman are. And in a ritual across the country, the Black Knight assassins stabbed Godwyn in the back as Ronnie, at the same moment, stabbed herself, producing the curse marks of death on each other's skin. So why did it have to happen at the same time? So it could split. The first death in the lands between, the first death of the demigods would be split. So if she had just stabbed herself, she would have died completely. If they had just stabbed Godwyn by himself, he would have died completely. But by splitting it, her flesh died while her soul remained, and Godwyn's soul died whilst his flesh remained. And I'm sure many of you are wondering, how could Ronnie have stolen the rune of death from Malekith? And many people are starting to think Marika herself might have had some sort of involvement in getting the rune of death to Ronnie. Womp womp.
Okay. Well, let's rewind a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said that Godwyn, his soul died, but his flesh remains alive.
Correct.
Well, what does that mean for the current timeline?
So what's happening now?
What's happening with his body now?
So what's happening now? After his death, they decided to give him a proper burial, and they buried him beneath the Capitol at the roots of the Erd Tree. The Erd Tree, of course, being a literal tree of life for the lands between. Not just an object of worship, but also it's how people were born. They were buried at the roots. They would enter the roots and be reborn through dew saplings. Godwyn was buried at the foot of the tree, but because he did not die a true death, his body grew restless and corrupted, and now he looks like this. Oh, yeah! Ew! He looks gross. He looks all fucked up because his body's all weird. And if you see what's growing out of him there, that's called death root. And it's taken hold. And they fucking buried him at the base of the Erd tree, and now the death root is entering the Erd tree, which is just fucking everything up. And you can find him there, and there he is dreaming. And you remember Fortisax? Fart sex? Remember Fartisax? He's there in his death time nightmare, trying to fight off death from completely consuming him.
A true friend.
A true friend. One might call him the ghost of a friend. And now that he's down there, many, many years have passed since this death, and he's now referred to as the Prince of Death. And there are certain members of certain beliefs in the lands between that quite like the idea of reintroducing death, like bedside maiden Fia, who has plans of her own with this Prince of Death. And that's where we're left off. All right, so that's Elden Ring. You've read Game of Thrones, right?
I have indeed, yes.
And that was also written by George R.R. Martin.
You would be correct in saying that, Malcolm.
Is there anyone that kind of reminds you of Godwyn in the Song of Ice and Fire?
Yes, there is. There's a certain young lad with dark hair named Jon Snow, who really reminds me of Godwyn the Golden.
Interesting. That's weird. I didn't think there'd be any similarities between authors' works. All right, so I guess, we can just start from the top. Like, who is he? Who are his parents?
So Jon Snow, he is the Bastard of Winterfell. Thought to be the bastard son of Ned Stark, if you read between the lines, if you just read the lines themselves.
People say that. People say read between the lines. It's just the lines.
And you will pretty quickly come to the conclusion that maybe this Jon Snow fella isn't exactly who people say he is. Because, Jon Snow is most likely actually not a bastard of Ned Stark, but instead the son of Ned Stark's sister, Lyanna Stark, and Rhaegar Targaryen, making him a part of A Song of Ice and Fire's golden lineage, much like Godwyn the Golden is part of the golden lineage of the Lands Between.
Okay, so he's a similar child, but, everyone knew who Godwyn was. Everyone loved Godwyn because he was perfect and did all these good things. Has Jon done anything interesting similar to Godwyn?
I'm glad you asked, my friend, because Jon has a history of making peace between warring factions, much like Godwyn the Golden. How Godwyn brought, instead of going to war with the dragons who were attacking the Golden Order, he thought, wouldn't it be better if everybody was friends and didn't hurt each other? Jon was put in a much similar situation. Being a part of the Night's Watch, an order that has warred with the wildlings north of the wall for centuries at least, maybe even thousands of years. He was put in a position where his home was being attacked by a rival faction, the wildlings. They were coming from the north, much like the dragons, mind you.
How long have the wildlings been there?
I mean, like probably thousands of years.
That's interesting because the dragons were there before the people were. So it's, it's just like that, whoa.
Whoa. But yeah, the wildlings and the Night's Watch have been at war for thousands of years probably at this point. And the wildlings, at the time of our story, have amassed into one big group. They used to all kind of hate each other until Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall,
Otherwise known as Sir Arthur Dane.
yes, he banded these tribes and clans and factions together in order to march south on the wall in the Night's Watch. And whilst Jon defended the wall, he actually spent some time with the wildlings, and he liked them quite a bit, actually. Specifically, a young lady kissed by fire. But he saw that they weren't all bad, that they were just put in kind of a hard situation where there's ice zombies trying to kill them, and they've got to get south of that wall. But he knows the wall can't be destroyed either. So Jon, even though he's in love, basically Jon Snow has got to fight against the people he likes and loves in order to defend the wall. However, it's after this encounter, when the wall is no longer in danger, that he spends a lot of time trying to make peace with the wildlings. Even though there's people like Bowen Marsh and Alistair Thorne, Alabaster Crow, who hate him for doing that and think he's a lunatic. But he's like, he takes a page out of...
He takes a book from all the libraries, and he takes a book out of that library, folks.
He takes a book out of the library of Stannis Baratheon. When the cold winds come calling, we're better banded together against them, wouldn't you say, Bastard Snow?
All right, so let me get this straight. So we've got Jon, the child of a golden lineage, who is by all accounts honorable, likable, good little lad that's trying to broker peace between these ancient warring factions because he realizes that, sometimes war ain't the answer to everything. He realizes, hey, like, it's better if we all get along. And he even becomes, there it is, friends with some of these.
Yes, you're very right.
That's interesting. But surely that's where the connections stop, because Godwyn had to die for the game to keep going. But surely Jon Snow, he sounds like the main character of these books. Surely he...
Jon Snow. Our lovely, lovely Jon Snow. This is the part of our story that gets a little sad, folks.
What is that? This is the part of our story that gets a little bit sad.
From the Book of Mormon. But Jon Snow, he tried to make peace, but people didn't like that, like I said, so they stabbed him. There's a plot to stab him. A group of people dressed in all black took knives and daggers and stabbed him to death.
But he did not even feel the fourth blade. All he felt was the cold.
Exactly right. However, just like with Godwyn the Golden of the Golden lineage, this is not the end of Jon Snow's story. You see, Jon Snow's in luck because he's no ordinary bastard. He's got secret powers, magical stock blood, that allow him to transplant his consciousness into that of his animal companion, Ghost of Winterfell.
All right, calm down. So what you're saying is his is almost like a perfect reflection of Godwyn's death, wherein Godwyn's soul died, but his body remained alive in this strange, like, purgatory death state. But Jon's body died while his consciousness seems to remain alive?
Yes, you'd be correct.
So is it confirmed that his consciousness is actually in Ghost, or is it just kind of like, come on, we all know?
I mean, it's not confirmed, but come on, we all know. The prologue of that book is about someone a warg dying and then putting his conscience into a wolf.
That's real interesting because the way all stories are written for as long as time has been going is that the beginning and end of a story mirror each other, and the second event of the story mirrors the second to last event, so on and so forth until you get to the middle of the story. Interesting.
Not only that, but there's also Bran chapters where Brynden Rivers is telling Bran all about how when wargs die, their consciousness remains in their animals. So, come on, folks.
So there's more of that reading the lines. Instead of reading between the lines, it's just reading the lines.
So that's the last we see of Jon, is when he gets stabbed and sliced, and as he lays bleeding out, going, "Ghost."
You know, they say he didn't even feel the fourth blade. All he felt was the cold.
All he felt was the cold, folks.
It's like, so this is the last we see of him at all.
Yep.
Interesting. So it seems like there's a little bit more to the story of Godwyn and Elden Ring and all of that. I wonder if we can look at the events from that game and sort of piece together a sort of future that is not yet known to the curious, voracious fans of A Song of Ice and Fire. So now, what can we learn? Alright, so in the prologue of A Game of Thrones, I believe that it's pretty apparent that the others have some sort of prophecy about a Night's Watch guy with gray eyes and black hair, and we'll get into that in a different video. But similar to that, the Nox that live under the ground, have a prophecy of their own to come save them and save the day and all this shit. And they're waiting for their Lord of Night. Their Lord of Night. Come on, where's the Lord of Night? Where is he? And they tried making their own. Yeah. They tried making their own. Christian's making a surprise face. Throw that up there. They attempt, because they made life, which were the Albinorics, and they made dragonkin soldiers, which were these weird, like, monstrosities that couldn't walk. But yeah, they basically tried to make their own Lord of Night that would save them from the subjugation of being trapped underground by the people that lived on top of the ground. So pretty interesting, right? They literally were trying to make him. So this gets into a very hot take where I think that Godwyn, not Ronnie, is the true Lord of Night, i.e. Godwyn being the deathbed fucking dead guy, Dusk Prince, and he was going to be the true Lord of Night, the guy that saw death, came back, and he was going to, with Miquella's help, save Albinorics and the Nox and the whole lands between from subjugation in their new order, totally separate from the Greater Will and the Erd Tree, which may or may not remind Christian of anything from A Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh my God. What if I told you in A Song of Ice and Fire, the hit acclaimed fantasy book series by George R.R. Martin, there is a group of people who live under the ground who have been subjugated by the people who live above the ground and are most likely the creators of life, such as the White Walkers, the others, and who are probably waiting for their Lord of Night, the Night's King of old, to free them from their own subjugation as they wage war against humanity. Now that's a similarity if I've ever heard of one. And there's theories floating around that Jon will be resurrected and be like the new Night's King or whatever, but nothing ever goes to plan. So maybe Jon, similar to the theory about Godwyn, is going to be sort of the Lord of Night, the one who will free the children of the forest from their subjugation, but not in the way that they think. And that Jon will most likely continue on his sort of peaceful path that he's been going on and training for, basically. And together with his kin, Bran, they will make peace between all the different warring factions, the children of the forest, the others, and mankind and the dragons and whatnot, and sort of create a new order.
I think it's really funny that the Westerosis and all the humans in the lands, all the humans in the Song of Ice and Fire have their Azor Ahai myth, and it's going to be the guy that's going to come and kill all the bad guys, Children of the Forest, White Walkers, etc. And then the Children of the Forest and the White Walkers, the others, have their own myth where the Lord of Night is going to come kill all the humans. So they're both waiting on this guy to come kill the other side for him. When out of, thousands of pages, 5 books worth of material, we've just seen the same conflict escalated into bigger and bigger stakes every time, where Jon is playing both sides, where Jon is a wildling and a Night's Watch member, and instead of doing what both sides want, which is kill the other side, he brings them together. You see, it's the exact same, this is just how writing works, guys. It's the exact same conflict, just on a greater scale. You escalate. It's stairs. It's a set of stairs. You go bigger and bigger up each step. Pretty obvious when you look at it. He's going to play both sides and end up pulling them together. It's also funny that Jon and Bran aren't like full-on brothers, because Godwyn and Mikola aren't full-on brothers. You know this, of course, if you watched our last video, but Godwyn's the son of Marika and Godfrey, but Mikola is the son of Marika and Radagon. So they're technically brothers. They call each other brother in the item descriptions. There's one item description, I think, where Mikola says, "Brother, here's to you dying a true death." And there's statues of Godwyn embracing Mikola, and they're really quite beautiful. So it's interesting that they're connected. The similarities between the characters go that far. Yeah. But yeah, here's the thing. So in Elden Ring, if you didn't have to play as the main character of the story, if there didn't have to be a player character that completed the story their own way, Mikola would have brought Godwyn back to life, and Mikola would have started his new order and blah, blah, blah. And that would have happened if the quest line didn't get cut from the game or / saved for the DLC, which is clearly what's happening. It's clearly getting saved for the DLC. All right, this was all recorded before the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer dropped, which dropped today while I'm saying this. And it looks like in the trailer, we're going to be inside of Mikola's dream, inside of that embryo or cocoon or whatever, and we might be able to fulfill a quest line about him becoming Lord. So, yeah, yes, sir. So the way to think about the books, I think, is since there isn't a player character that you have to kind of throw a bone to, it's kind of like, to me, it comes off like A Song of Ice and Fire is Elden Ring's story without everything going wrong.
And another interesting thing is that Godwyn's resurrection is all going to sort of revolve around an eclipse, sapping the sun of its light. Yeah. And using that gold to bring him back to life, while Jon's sort of death and resurrection will happen around the same time as the long night, where the sun will not shine, presumably, on the lands of Westeros, maybe the whole world. The mechanism of that is up in the air. It could be a fucking volcano spray. It could be the fucking moon exploding. It could be.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But the idea of, like, Godwyn's resurrection having to do with an eclipse where the sun loses its light is an interesting sort of parallel as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what would make Godwyn the Lord of Night. We've got Godwyn the Golden, the perfect child of the Golden Order, resurrected. He comes back to life simultaneously as light is drained from the planet. Like, that's the Lord of Night. So this is what the story was going to be. Mikola was going to resurrect Godwyn, start his whole new order, sap the sun of light, and bring together the people of the lands between.
So to recap, the general idea of how Jon is going to come back to life is usually Melisandre or Stoneheart are the two ideas. However, what Elden Ring sort of hints at is that maybe it's not going to be Melisandre or Stoneheart that resurrects him, but Bran. And that Melisandre will play more of a deathbed Fia sort of role, where she's just doing these, small ball fucking blood magic rituals, while while it's actually going to be Bran using his magic powers, which are growing, to resurrect Jon, as a part of Bran's whole plan to bring everyone together to create this new order that it seems he's already, planting the seeds of and working on, as Bran is actually the one that awakens Jon's warg powers in the first place. And we know that Bran has kind of got his own secret timey-wimey plot where he's traveling through people's dreams and shit to get them to do what he wants. And to, it's all coalescing into something, which we don't know what, but Elden Ring tells us that something might be Bran's new inclusive order, helmed by Jon and his peacemaking abilities.
I think that sums it up perfectly. I think that that's it. I think that everyone is too focused on Melisandre and fucking Lady Stone. Who gives a fuck about Lady Stoneheart? Who gives a flying fuck about Lady Stoneheart? She's dead. Oh! It's clearly going to be Bran. I mean, Elden Ring's story is so similar, and it just makes so much more sense to have Bran do that shit. I mean, we see it. Elden Ring is like if Song of Ice and Fire went wrong. It's like there it is. Bran's going to do it.
Hey everyone, I'm editing this video right now, and I just wanted to pop in and say that in the time it has taken me to edit this video, I've come across an interesting mythological character from Welsh mythology, and his name is Bran the Blessed, and his name, his Welsh name, translates literally to Blessed Crow. And he, in the story, is in possession of a magic cauldron that brings people back to life. And it seems like the big story that he's in has to do with two kingdoms trying to make peace and have a union together. So something to think about.
I mean, yeah. Godwyn was the hero of both sides. He was the prophesized hero of both sides.
But
there's a certain character that gets in the way of all this by freeing themselves from the bonds and chains of fate and determinism. Cast it all aside in their own magic ritual to start their own age of darkness. Oh my god, and she has a messed up eye. Oh my god, she has a big blue eye. Like you're on. Alright, we're getting into that in the next video.
Like and subscribe. More on the way. More videos on the way.